But what was exciting after seeing a terrible start, just awful start, was that it didn't get to the quarterback of Jalen Hurts. It did not get to the Eagles. They were down 16-0 at one point. But even at 16-0, they were able to come back to only be down 6 at the half. 26-20 was the halftime score. So even when they were down big against a dominant performance by Kyler Murray, the Eagles were able to continue to fight and claw back into this one. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, ChadBurn, and we are back at it for another week of the ChadBurn Show as we get closer to the end of the NFL season. We get closer to the playoffs, to the exciting time that is the NFL playoffs, as everyone is deciding where we are in the rankings, who is going to face who's going to clinch the last remaining wild card spots to get into the playoffs, who is going to clinch the first seeds in their division. We already have many teams already solidifying those spots, but there are still a few up for grabs, and that means that there's a lot to discuss, a lot of controversy to look over, and to continue to discuss the games that are unfolding for these different teams. There's also, obviously, it's an Eagles game we need to talk about, a game against the Cardinals where two former Oklahoma Sooners quarterbacks went at it for a huge game, I'd say, on both sides. Obviously, the Eagles did not come out with the win. Sorry to spoil that for anyone that didn't watch it. Crazy if you didn't. But obviously, a good game from Jalen Hurts, again, in his second start in the NFL. And then, of course, what can we say about Kyler Murray, who lit it up on the other side of the field? But again, something to be proud for all those Sooners alumni who followed them during their college careers, and fun to see them out on the same field, taking it, to both houses, really doing a great job out there. But in this week, in this episode, obviously, we're going to go over that playoff picture. We're going to discuss about the teams, where they're at, who's clinched, who is still on the bubble and may have a chance to get in. And then finally, we will analyze the obvious games between the Eagles and the Cardinals. What were the three main observations? What were the things we wanted to see Jalen Hurts do, and did he succeed? And I guess, obviously, where that leaves Carson Wentz on this team, after there have been reports this week that he does not want to be a backup on the team. If I were him, I would collect a check of $35 million and sit on the bench, no problem. But to some people, obviously, he wants to be the starter. He wants to be competitive. He wants to be out there winning games. So we'll see. What does that mean for him? What does that mean for this Eagles organization? And have we found a quarterback that, if you were able to build a defense around him, could be a solidified starter for a while? But without further ado, let's get into the NFL playoff picture. So in the AFC, the things are starting to become obviously a lot clearer. The Chiefs right now at 13-1 are obviously the 1 seed. They've clinched that. They have clinched their division. They will be going in, taking probably the bye this week in the NFL in the first week of the playoffs. Finally, they had a very great win over the Saints. We kind of were figuring out, would the, Chiefs be able to continue their success? Could they continue to perform well? And in this one against the Saints, it was really interesting to watch because Patrick Mahomes did not have an otherworldly game. He went 26 of 47 for 254 yards. Great for some quarterbacks, but for a Patrick Mahomes, that's actually quite average. He did have 3 touchdowns and was able to really will this team forward and have, I would say, a strong early performance, get a big lead on the Saints in order to really kind of take that one home. The Saints would claw back in it later in the game in the second half, but it was not enough. There was just too many great performances. I would say almost even performances all around. And sorry, obviously we have noise in here because this is what I was recording from home, but the dog is in here, restless as always. But getting back to my point, the Chiefs, they continue to do well. They continue to perform well with their squad. There was an even, I would say, performance across the board between Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, Hardman, Watkins. All of them had their moments. The sad part for the Chiefs, and something they're going to need to figure out as they go down the road, is what to do with CEH. Yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is now injured and out for the rest of the season. Definitely not making it back for the playoffs. We'll learn more about this I would say, seriousness of the injury. But for now, he is out, and the Chiefs will have to man up with just Le'Veon Bell, who has proven to be a suitable backup in this league right now and continue to do well in both the passing and between the tackles. But the Chiefs, again, solidifying their own at the number 1 seed. But right behind them for the 2 seed would be the Steelers. Right now, I believe they're somewhere at 12-3, 11-3. They are facing the Bengals tonight, so we'll see how that goes. We assume that will be another win, so we can probably notch them up to 12-3 on the season. Steelers are an interesting case who are undefeated for a while, but they seem to be a weak undefeated team. Yeah, they recently have had some losses, and to be honest, it's been against some better teams, but the Steelers have played a lot of weak teams this year on the schedule. They have not had a real tough schedule. So for them, when they find they're going to be going up against tough competition, like in the playoffs, how will they do? In my opinion, I think the Steelers are ripe to lose in the first round. Don't forget, only the number 1 seed this year will get a first-round bye, and the Steelers are not going to get that first-round seed away from the Chiefs. So they will have to face against maybe a Dolphins, maybe a Colts, and in that situation, I think the Steelers are definitely going to lose. Those are better teams with better defenses that will be able to scheme against an aging Roethlisberger, be able to take away some of those wide receivers, and are able to get enough offensive production on the field in order to really win these games. So can the Steelers continue to have success and continue to play at a high level? I think it's possible, but they are definitely the weakest of, I would say, the higher seeds in the AFC conference. Because right behind the Steelers, you have the Bills, who are absolutely coming into their own with a big win over the Broncos for 48-19, beating the Drew Lock Broncos and just having their way with him. Josh Allen will go 28 of 40 for 359 yards and 2 touchdowns, with having 2 wide receivers, the beneficiaries of that, with both Diggs going for 147 yards and Beasley 112 yards, both eclipsing the 100-yard marker. I mean, their offense has completely come alive. They're able to solidify between Zach Moss and Singletary for the running back position. Josh Allen is throwing it all over the field and has plenty of options to, kind of make his choices out there. He's able to dish it between, if it's not Diggs and Beasley, he's got Gabriel out there. He's got Knox at the tight end position. He has a solid team that they can work with, and they're able to score a ton of points. And when you're able to put up big points with a good defense, that is a great formula for the playoffs. That means they can go against these tough teams, make it that there has to be a shootout, and they can perform in those situations. I mean, Josh Allen is a revelation this year. He is absolutely stupendous, and I cannot believe, we were doubting him a few years ago. He has a cannon of an arm and has taken these Bills, I would say, deep into the playoffs this year. I expect them to win a round or two for sure, and maybe even contend for the AFC Championship. I think they are absolutely hitting their stride at the right moment. Now, right behind them, now, here's where it gets interesting. The Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Bills have all clinched their spot in the playoffs. What is still up for grabs is the AFC South. And as I've talked week after week on the show, the AFC South has been one of the greatest, I would say, rivalries to watch this season between the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. The Titans have a big win over the Lions, 46-25. It really was no contest. The Lions got some points in the end, but it was really all Tennessee Titans. This one was the engine for this team again, is Derrick Henry, 24 carries for 147 yards and a touchdown. Now, when you have a running back can get that performance week in and week out, you know that you can have success every week. But what happens now with the Titans late in the season, they are now also getting it from their quarterback. Ryan Tannehill went 21 of 27, only 27 attempts, but completed 21 of those passes for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns. That red zone efficiency matched with the power and speed and ferocity that is Derrick Henry is going to equal a offense that's going to be able to perform in any type of weather situation, in any game situation. When you can rely on both your passing and run game, I don't know where you can find a weakness on that offense. Now, the Tennessee Titans defense is another story. They can absolutely be exposed by good offenses, and that is going to be a test for them later in the playoffs. It's not a bad defense, but it's not a great one. And we're going to have to see, can the Titans overcome that with strong offensive performances week in and week out as they edge closer to the playoffs. If they continue to win, if they win in the last few games and the Colts win out, the Titans will clinch their division. The Colts cannot lose the rest of the season. The Titans have the tiebreaker, so they need to be able to win and get the Titans to lose. But if the Titans win out, this is their division. And I think they're going to be very competitive against any team that comes against them early on in the playoffs. Now, behind the Titans, you have the Browns and the Colts. Now, like we just mentioned, the Colts are battling for that 1 seed in that division. So the Colts could easily jump up to the 4th seed in this playoff, and the Colts have had a good game. The Colts also were able to get a win. They're able to continue to perform. They have strong performances by, Phillip Rivers, Jonathan Taylor. They're able to get that done. Even when because they won over the Houston, even when Deshaun Watson came out and blew it away, 33 of 41 for 373 yards and 2 touchdowns, the Colts still won 27-20. And that's because they have a good defense, and their defense is able to keep them in this. They absolutely stifled Deshaun Watson early in this game, and that allowed them to get a big enough lead to secure that victory later on in the game. Now, obviously, the Deshaun Watson did get into his groove, and he was able to come into his zone and start winning and putting up points, but the Colts did enough on defense to win, and that's going to be big for them. If the Colts defense can perform every game, and they can have a run attack with Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Wilkins, they will be a threat against any team. Now, I don't think they're better than the Titans. I don't think they're better than the Bills. I definitely don't think they're better than Chiefs. But the Colts still have a consistent team that should be at least frightening to some of these playoff contenders. Because if the Colts can get a groove, if they are able to stay consistent with that offense and they are able to stay consistent with that defense, they are going to keep the games close. And in close matches, it's a toss-up. And I think if the Colts can keep their opponents scored low, then they will always have a chance to win. And it'll be fascinating to see if the defense will overcome in this game. They've been first in many categories throughout this season. They've switched places, dropping to third, first, but they have overall been one of the top 3 defenses in this league. And they're going to need it as they run through the playoffs. The Browns as well, 10-4 right now. 26 win over the Giants. Baker Mayfield is starting to absolutely light it up. The Browns have been known as a run-first offense this year and a run-dominant offense this year. But Mayfield yesterday went 27 of 32 for 297 yards and 2 touchdowns. If Mayfield is going to start being able to perform, the Browns have a chance to do well in this playoffs. Because so far they've been very one-dimensional with Baker Mayfield able to perform here and there, but in general it has always been the run game first. When you have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb able to come out there with a 2-headed monster, the Browns are going to run the ball and run it effectively. But now that Baker Mayfield is able to perform and able to perform well for this team, that opens up so many more windows for them. There's so many more options on that offense, and Stefanski can get creative. You have great wide receivers and tight ends on that team. So if your run game is doing well and pass game, the Browns could be a really explosive team in the playoffs. The worry is obviously, will they get a lot of points put up on them? Their secondary is not strong, but their defensive line, obviously with Myles Garrett and Vernon coming in there, that's a threat to anyone. But the Browns are going to have to keep the scores low. They can win in shootouts, but that's not their strength. They need the games to be close. They need to be able to grind it out with the run game, be able to beat and pound on the other team and keep the ball for a long time, increase the time of possession. If they can do that, control the time of possession, control the run game, then they'll be able to win games. So you got to hope it doesn't always have to rely on the defense, because the defense gives up points. We saw what happened against the Baltimore Ravens late in the game. They were not able to shut them down. They're able, here they beat the Giants against a backup quarterback with Colt McCoy. But in general, the Browns defense is not one that you want to rely on in a close game. So we'll see how that unfolds as well. The Dolphins finally are back there at 9-5. They get a win over the Patriots, 22-12. Flores beating his former mentor in Bill Belichick. But the Dolphins, it's not. I think they make the playoffs. It could be interesting, but I would not say that I put a lot of money in the Dolphins. They had a good win. They're still in this. They're 9-5. It's a great part where they should be. They did not expect to be doing this well this early in Flores' career. Expected a few more years, a few more developmental years for Tua, but at least they're getting wins now. I think it'll be great for them to get some playoff experience, get the young guys to start feeling comfortable in the playoff spot, and then come back next year for a bigger run. I'm not saying it's out of the question they have a run in the playoffs, but it's just not likely. So if we move now to the NFC again has 3 teams that have clinched their division. You have Packers at number 1 with a 24-16 win over the Panthers. Rodgers, this team is so deadly. Rodgers only threw for 143 yards, only missing 9 passes and completing 20. But they have a great running back in Aaron Jones. And just as we've talked as other teams having that dual threat in both the passing and run game, the Packers are the same deal. Most of the time, you're going to rely on Aaron Rodgers to win games for you. But if you don't have to rely on Aaron Rodgers and you can then hand it off consistently to Aaron Jones, who did 20 carries for 145 yards and a touchdown, I mean, how do you stop them? If you're going to load up the box and try and stop the run game, Rodgers will pick you apart in the backfield. If you're going to try and, stand back in zone coverage and try and stop the wide receivers and make Rodgers have to become one-dimensional, well, then you're just going to hand off to Aaron Jones and you're going to get chunk play after chunk play with him. They have great weapons on the offense, and their defense isn't half bad either. I mean, are they one of the top defenses in the league? No. But they're able to at least compete and able to keep their team in it. And you know that if it's a one-score game, the Packers are absolutely going to win that because even if they're tied or down, Rodgers can always put together a drive, no matter where they are on the field, and score. So the Packers are sitting comfortably at the 1 seed, clinching that, and for sure I think going to clinch this easily since the Saints lost. They clinched that 1 seed overall, so they're going to get a bye. Now at the 2 seed, you have the Saints. And the Saints, like we mentioned, just had their loss against the Chiefs. Not a bad loss, but one that was a little revealing. Drew Brees came back after cracking 11 ribs and puncturing a lung. Not easy to come back from that. And he still went 15 of 34 for 234 yards. It was his first time ever in his career starting a game 0-5. So this is not what we say typical Drew Brees. Drew Brees obviously wants to get in a groove. He wants to complete all his passes. He's an accurate passer and a great, general on the field. But the problem is in this one is that he looked awkward throwing. Clearly, he is still getting loose. The ribs need to heal better. He's going to finally get back into his throwing form. And when that happens, there's nothing going to stop him. But right now, Drew Brees does not look like Drew Brees. And that's obviously detrimental to Alvin Kamara around him. It's detrimental to putting more time that the defense has to take on offenses. The defense has been one of the best in the leagues this year, but if the offense can't control the ball and going to have 3 and outs, the defense will get exhausted and they're going to lose these tougher opponents like the Chiefs. Like we said in the earlier talk about the Chiefs, the Saints did come back in this game and they made it close, but it's not the same Saints that we expect. The Saints are a team that we expect high-octane offensive prowess, and that was just not there yet. So our hope is obviously Drew Brees can get healthy and they'll get better. But at a 2 seed, they are a risky and I would say weak 2 seed at that. Right behind them, the Seahawks, another weak team. In the AFC, we're talking about all these threats at the top as well as on the bottom. But here in the NFC, we have a lot of weak teams at the top. The Seahawks win over the Washington football team 20-15, but Russ Wilson did not look like Russell Wilson. He went 18 of 23 for 121 yards. That's just not going to cut it for them. The Seahawks, I know, are a run-first team, and they want to hope that they can stand behind Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde. And Carlos Hyde did have a big run yesterday, and they are a good run team. But that team is obviously led by Russell Wilson. And if he can't get in a groove, you can't get DK Metcalf involved, you can't get Lockett involved, I mean, that's just not going to be a formula for success for the Seattle Seahawks. They want to be able to have Russell Wilson take over the game and take control. And if he can't, this is going to be a really tough playoff run for them. Their defense is one of the worst in the league. And so they're going to give up points. If the Saints cannot put up points, it's all over for them. So the hope is the Saints kind of find their identity again and become a dominant offensive threat. But for now, if they can only rely on the run game and Russell Wilson's not doing it in the passing game, I don't see them going very far. They are at the 3 seed. They've clinched a playoff berth, but who they play is going to be a big determining factor if we think they can go further in the playoffs. Russell Wilson clearly has a ton of experience in the playoffs and can do magic when the chips are down and there's a lot of pressure. But I do believe that they are a distance from where they were early in the season where Russell Wilson looked like the magic he was. They have to clean it up a lot. They got to get the wide receivers open, create some separation, make it easier for them, and get better passes and better passing opportunities for Russell Wilson. And obviously pound the rock. If they can get Chris Carson going again, then they'll have success. Now at the 4th seed, and this one's up in the air because this will go to the divisional winner of the NFC East. It is a weak divisional winner. Right now, the Washington Redskins are 6-8. They are first in the NFC East. They are being trailed behind by the Giants and the Cowboys, who are at 5-9. But the Washington football team, I would say, looks good enough to at least clinch this NFC East. They have a dominant defensive front. Chase Young looks absolutely incredible. I think that they are going to be able to keep games close with the defense. But the offense, there's a lot to be desired. Right now, with Alex Smith injured on the sideline, you will go into Dwayne Haskins. Now, Dwayne Haskins went 38 for 55 attempts. 55 attempts for 295 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Granted, he's close to 300 yards, but when you get 55 attempts, I hope you get close to 300 yards. I mean, my God, it does not take much at that point when you're slinging the ball that much to get close to 300 yards. But Dwayne Haskins at least is performing at well while Alex Smith is out. I think Haskins will be replaced once Smith comes back because Smith is not going to get the high turnover rate that Haskins has. He's going to make better decisions. But again, Washington football team, they got a good run game with Antonio Gibson. J.D. McKissick does great in both the rush and pass game. So you believe that they can at least put up some points. The defense is dominant. Maybe they could surprise someone in the first round, but I think obviously it'll be an early exit for the Washington football team, a weak 4th seed. But again, someone's got to win the NFC East. Someone's going to get that 4th seed. It's going to happen somewhere. Behind them is where it gets interesting. For the 5th and 6th seed, right there in the wild card hunt, you have the Rams at 9-5, who yesterday lost to the Jets. They allowed the Jets to get their first win of the season. I mean, I had confidence in the Rams early on because they are well coached, have a decent set of weapons, and have one of the best defensive players in the league in Aaron Donald. But my God, they let the Jets beat them 23-20. I mean, I don't know how it gets any worse than that. So you're coming off a loss to Jets. You hope you get a win next week, and you can have some momentum going into the playoffs. But, I mean, a loss to the Jets is brutal in the Week 15 game. And the Bucs, on the other hand, while you have the Rams losing to the Jets and just looking, at this point, lost, the Bucs had a really impressive game. And they've had some bad losses over the last few weeks, but they had an impressive comeback win over the Falcons. They're saying 9-5, 6th seed, tied with the Rams at 9-5. They're definitely not going to win, their division at this point since the Saints have clinched it. But the Bucs could be a threat coming to the playoffs. If they continue to perform at this level, they are going to be a threat, obviously, in there. When you have Tom Brady going 31 for 45 for 390 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Mike Evans receiving 6 of those passes for 110 yards, you could be a threat in the playoffs. This is all about having that weapon, having some threats downfield. And when you can throw deep to Antonio Brown to win the game, and sitting behind him is Godwin, Evans, Gronkowski, and Ronald Jones the second as for the running back, I mean, that is a powerful offense. There hasn't been really a question on whether they can get done the offense. The question is, can they sustain it through 4 quarters of a game? They either don't start well and end well, or they start well and end bad. So what I hope to see from the Bucs is consistency. I know it's the first year between Tom Brady and Arians at the coach, but you would hope that they could get a little bit more rapport to have some consistency on the field. We all know Tom Brady will perform when he needs to. He is the GOAT for a reason. But right now, the Bucs seem a little lost. Now, this is a statement win over the Falcons, coming from behind to win this one. But still, they need to obviously show up in order to have sustained success in the playoffs. I do not doubt that Tom Brady will figure this one out and will get this team rolling into the playoffs and rolling fast and furious. But it is still a tough uphill battle for them, I think, against some of these opponents. The Bucs could still easily beat the Seahawks. They could probably beat the Saints now if with Drew Brees injured. But I think that the Bucs still are looking for an identity, and if they can get better on defense and they can continue to solidify their offensive prowess, then the Bucs can be dangerous. We'll see if Tom Brady can get their kick their ass into high gear later in the playoffs. But again, it's going to take a lot for the Buccaneers to be a big time threat, as they were thought of early in the season, to win the Super Bowl. But right now, that's the playoff picture. In the AFC, like we said, Chiefs, Steelers, Bills, with a toss-up between the Titans and the Colts, then the Browns and Dolphins. On the NFC, Packers, Saints, Seahawks, Washington football team, and then shortly behind them, the Rams and the Bucs. We're going to see how it unfolds. There's a new, obviously, place for another wildcard team. We'll see if that will change it as the weeks unfold. But that's where we stand right now for the playoffs. And, guys, it is exciting. It is good football. Every Sunday there have been big games. There's a lot to, I think, to be, anticipate for greatness in the playoffs. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the slate of teams I've already gotten in. They're well-deserved teams besides, obviously, the Washington football team in the NFC East, but it is going to be a good one. I think, obviously, the top teams are coming from the AFC, so let's see if the NFC can also step it up with a competitive playoff bracket. Now that we've gone through the NFL football scene and the playoff teams, we're going to turn to a team that's definitely not making the playoffs and has definitely got a long way to go to be a playoff contender. But we have to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and their loss to the Arizona Cardinals. This week, the Philadelphia Eagles went to Arizona to take on the Cardinals, having two Oklahoma Sooner alumni quarterback on the field with Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts. It was Jalen Hurts' second start of the season, and it was a beautiful start for Jalen Hurts. Again, we had a lot of questions of whether or not he could perform, do better passing, get the ball downfield, do more than just running the ball, and he did all of that and more. To start off, Jalen Hurts went 24-44, a 54% completion. Now, that's not that exciting, but don't forget, in this game, late in the game, he had to throw a lot of Hail Marys, a lot of deep passes, some incompletions there. He was hustled out of the pocket, had to throw some that were, just to get the ball out of play to not take a sack. So, there's a little padding there on that one, so imagine take some away, but still, not a great completion percentage, but he still got it done. He threw for 338 yards with 3 touchdowns, a 102.3 rating. That's what we want to see. Efficiency, accuracy, ability to score. That's all we're asking for Jalen Hurts. He was able to up his yards per attempt on the pass to 7.68. Last week was 5.6. Like we said, a lot of dunking, a lot of short passes, nothing to be ashamed of, but again, was still something to be desired. It looked very college-esque, a lot of short passes, screens, and everything else. The screens worked well here, but what we finally got to see is Jalen Hurts making the plays with his legs, getting outside the pocket, and getting the ball downfield, utilizing the talent of his tight ends and utilizing the talent, apparently, of Alshon Jeffrey, who has come out of a coma, it seems, and playing well under Jalen Hurts. And we also got to see Greg Ward, who has been the late season hero for the Eagles 2 seasons now, but Greg Ward actually going on fire with 2 touchdowns early in the first half. But there are some observations for this game. Number 1, the start of the game was awful. Number 2, the resiliency, the ability not to cave under pressure. We saw that from Jalen Hurts, incredible. And then 3, we'll talk about the play calling of Doug Peterson as well as, seeing the passes develop for Jalen Hurts. Now, as I kind of alluded to, the start of this game was awful. The Eagles looked like they had no rhythm. There was bad play calling, a little too much reliance on the rush, and no creativity. The Arizona Cardinals were just teeing off at them and making Jalen Hurts feel completely under pressure and heat, and he was not able to complete any passes. It was a bad start. They were punted. They had a safety. Then they had a blocked punt. It was just all forms of bad early on for the Eagles. And, again, Jalen Hurts did not look great early on. It looked like the Cardinals had seen the film. They knew how to get at him. They knew how to get at the, lackluster and non-creative offense that is the Philadelphia Eagles offense. They knew how to prepare for it. But what was exciting after seeing a terrible start, just awful start, was that it didn't get to the quarterback of Jalen Hurts. It did not get to the Eagles. They were down 16-0 at one point. But even at 16-0, they were able to come back to only be down 6 at the half. 26-20 was the halftime score. So even when they were down big against a dominant performance by Kyler Murray, the Eagles were able to continue to fight and claw back into this one. The defense had 2 forced fumbles. One on the first drive, knocking out DeAndre Hopkins' hands. Another fumble later in the game off of Kyler Murray, and an interception of Kyler Murray. We were winning the turnover battle. That was key, something the defense hasn't done all year. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Jalen Hurts, even after a terrible start, was able to get into rhythm and start performing well with the team. You had the Quez Watkins touchdown, which was a 30-yard screen. An easy screen to Watkins. He spins out to the outside and bursts for a 30-yard run to touchdown to get this thing going. You then have the Greg Ward touchdown, an easy 4-yard Greg Ward touchdown across towards the middle. It was exactly what we wanted. Easy slant, perfect pass. Then Greg Ward to the outside with a beautiful touchdown, getting his toes inside the line. As you saw in the replay, at first it looked like he was out by a few inches, but then looking at the other angle, you could see the grass, the green between his toe and the sideline. It was a beautiful touchdown catch, a beautiful placed ball by Jalen Hurts. This is all we're going back to. Carson Wentz early on, while being a talented player, his accuracy was off and his decision-making was off. And Jalen Hurts, even down 16-0, had the drive and the tenacity to get this team within a chance to win it. The passing was on point. The screens were great. The short passes were accurate. And then when he had to go deep, there was some good connections. Like all quarterbacks, obviously there were some passes I think he wants back. He was overshooting a couple down deep. He threw over the head of a couple wide receivers. He wasn't always on the same page. I think there are some things you see from Carson Wentz that are emblematic of this offense, which is the receivers and the quarterback are not always on the same page, that there is some confusion, I think, from the play calling, that the play calling itself is very lackluster. Like, all the stuff we saw with Carson Wentz, as much as Jalen Hurts has been able to amplify and make this offense look better, there is still a lot of question marks around Doug Peterson. Namely, these plays that he calls take forever for the wide receivers to get any separation and relies on this offensive line to have to hold up and keep the quarterback protected as the play develops downfield. And as we've said all season, this is not the offensive line to be doing this. We have now had our 13 offensive line combination this season, which means there is no continuity, there is no rhythm, there is no ability for them to communicate well and to be able to be of one mind to perform well on the field. So as we've always said, Doug Peterson needs to get through his head that the plays have to develop quickly. Last week we saw that a lot of short passes, a lot of one-option passes where it went to one guy who was coming across the middle, designed rubs. That's the creativity we want to see. But again, Doug Peterson relies on this offense to have to develop for a long time, and we saw something emblematic of what happened during the Carson Wentz regime, which was sacks. Jalen Hurts was sacked 6 times in this game. So as we get into that third point of play calling being important into this game, Doug Peterson's going to have to take a lot of onus to this. Even though the Eagles have had a bit of a revival, they seem to be awake again. I do not believe that should, we should forgive Doug Peterson for the horrendous game plan and strategy we saw all season. Yes, Wentz was obviously a big part of the issue there. And as I posted today on social media, I will be apologizing to everyone out there. I did not think Jalen Hurts was going to be the answer. I did not think he could give that spark that this offense needed, that a lot of it was on the weapons around them. Not just that Wentz was being, wrongfully accused for being bad. He was bad, very bad. He was performing terribly. But I thought that there was a lot of issues around it. And so I'm going to have to say I apologize for not looking at Hurts and seeing him as a viable weapon in this league. I still don't think he can carry a team to be greater than they are. But, he's able to give them a spark and create a little more life. But what is going to continue to hinder this team is the questionable play calling by Doug Peterson. And that goes back to also his aggressiveness. In this game, Doug Peterson went for 2 two-point conversions. And on both of them, he failed. Bad play calls that had no chance of getting in. And in that situation, you then lose 2 points that you could have had. Both field goals could have gone up. You could have had 2 points. I mean, at one point, we were tied 26-26 after a gutsy Jalen Hurts rush, 7-yard rush up the middle to get it. And unfortunately, we go for 2 points again. The 2 points were just criminal, in my opinion, because if instead of being tied 26-26, you could have been up 28-26, which changes the game plan for the Cardinals in that they're not just going to be able to do everything in their arsenal. They're going to have to change up their strategy, and that might have been advantageous to the Eagles defense. They have been able to get at the quarterback all season. This would have been a point if the Cardinals had to go for passing, you could have at least had a chance to get at it and change the narrative of the game. But again, Doug Peterson wants to be aggressive, wants to be known as this coach who's going to do big plays, big deals. It doesn't work out. He also went on so many 4th down plays. I think it was like 2 or 3, and only I think 2 of them worked out. One was a Jalen Hurts scramble that was able to get them 6 yards, was 4th and 6. Another was a great to Greg Ward for a touchdown, but I'd still think they were risky and not necessary. Did it put in a good situation in this game? Sure. But it's a lot of unnecessary risk that Doug Peterson puts this team into and puts them into tough situations. And while Doug Peterson continues to perform bad, luckily Jalen Hurts is there. Jalen Hurts is making this team look better. I think Doug Peterson, he's got to go. The GM's got to go. We've seen talks that John Dorsey has been coming in as a special advisor to the front office. The GM needs to be fired right away to give them any chance of rebuilding this team around it. And you got to get rid of Doug Peterson. The play calling is just uninspiring. And while Jalen Hurts has been able to lift this team up and lift the offense up by the creativity and the ability of his legs to extend plays so wide receivers can open, that's not always going to be the case. And you need a coach that's going to be able to put Jalen Hurts in the right situation. And I have no confidence that Doug Peterson can do that. I really don't. I don't think he's that good a coach and that good a play caller. If he gives up the play calling duties and brings an offensive coordinator, I can have some faith because I know that he can rally the team to play hard every time. The players want to play for him, but he cannot call this game. And again, we say this tough, that the play calling is rough and it's tough on them. I mean, again, we look at the end of the game, even after Jalen Hurts ties 26-26, bad 2-point call play by Doug Peterson. Eventually the Cardinals score into 33-26 game. You think you got to go down, you got to score a touchdown. We're on the Arizona 11, 2 play calls, 2 sacks, and we're out of it now. And it's 4th and 21. I mean, those are opportunities where if the play is a better play design, doesn't rely on the quarterback to be in the pocket so long and able to get the ball out quickly, maybe you have a shot. But it's disappointing in that sense, right? I'm excited. I'm elated to see how well Jalen Hurts is doing. But at the same time, it's just the same rigmarole with Doug Peterson, and it's not exciting. It's not good football. And I just don't have the confidence with him there. I get so upset to see him take all these chances. And yes, sometimes it pays off. That's the sports analytics behind it. But if you're having bad play calls, more than not, it's not going to work out. Now, while we kind of have broken down all the plays of the Eagles and what's there that's positive, the big points of it, I will say that the Eagles did not lose this game. This game was lost on an incredible performance by the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray went 27 of 36, only missed 9 passes for 406 yards, 3 touchdowns. He gave up that interception, but still 3 touchdowns on 406 yards. He was able to connect with no problem to Hopkins, who went 9 receptions for 169 yards and a touchdown. When you have that type of production between your quarterback and the wide receiver, no defense can stop you. I mean, the Eagles had no answer for that pair. Kyler Murray, while getting pressured and hassled, we had a little bit of pressure early on, able to get in this game, claw back to tie it up. I mean, when he needed a catch from Hopkins, he got it. I mean, Hopkins had at least a handful of insane catches that only he can make. I mean, the hand strength of that man is ridiculous. The touchdown pass he got, where it's just one hand he's holding on through the ground. I mean, you don't see that from any other wide receiver in the league. It is remarkable. He's able to catch the ball between 2 cornerbacks and come down with ease with it. Kyler Murray just puts it up there, and Kyler Murray's got a great arm, and he makes great decisions. But, I mean, Hopkins is a freak. And this Arizona team, as much as we've seen that, they can be up and down, they may not have all the weapons they want, they might not win the games they should win. I mean, you cannot deny that they have one hell of an offense. And that offense is just all Kyler Murray and Hopkins right now, and it's beautiful. I mean, you have a good running game with Kenyon Drake and you have Edwards, but in reality, I mean, the engine that is pushing this team through and going to make them completely a threat later on the season is Hopkins and Murray. And they are well positioned for the next few years with a good coach and a good quarterback and good wide receiver, a decent defense that's being built up. I mean, they are positioned well in the future to be a dominant team in this league. So, again, the Eagles did not necessarily lose this game. The Arizona Cardinals definitely won it, but they were competitive, and the Eagles should have been in a better position, I think, with better play calling, better situational football. The Eagles could have possibly won this game. I truly believe that. But we are now playing in an end of a season where we're just happy to see some success. If Jalen Hurts does well, then I'm going to be happy to see that. If the Eagles perform at least decent and keep the games close, I'll be happy to see that. We're not playing for a playoff spot. We're not playing to, get far and go to a championship. That's not this season, folks. This season's all about looking what we got, making decisions from there, and building up in the draft. And this then leads, the question of what do we do with Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz? I mean, if Jalen Hurts is playing this well, do we need Carson Wentz? Can you fix Carson Wentz? Because Carson Wentz, as we all know, is tied to a big contract. And if you cannot trade him, you cannot cut the player. It is too big of a hit to the salary cap and is an absolute embarrassment by Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman, who gave him this contract before drafting Jalen Hurts. They gave him this monster contract to extend him to say that he's the face of the franchise, to only then undermine his confidence and continue to rattle him with having Jalen Hurts behind him and zero support from the front office to build around him. I mean, when you have that kind of embarrassment streak, that on the dashboard, I mean, there's nothing else they can do right now with that quarterback position. So you either have to trade him or rely on Jalen Hurts coming into his own and being a good quarterback. And if you can trade Carson Wentz, then maybe you can have something with Jalen Hurts here. You can have a quarterback that, while I don't think he'll be the top in the league, I think he can still perform well. And then you can focus drafting on building a dominant defense. We've seen in this league that with a big, strong, powerful defense and an adequate offense, you can go far. You can even win championships. So I think if we feel that we're confident with Jalen Hurts that he can get the job at least done week in and week out, then we can now focus, bring in a good GM that has a great drafting record, and go and find weapons in there. Get strong defensive players. We're going to have a top 6 draft pick during this season. Get a great linebacker. Get someone in the middle that can be dominant and be a field general for that defense, which we've lacked for years. Get some strong cornerbacks. Trade for powerful secondary. Get a dominant defense that will keep the score low, and then have Jalen Hurts come in there who can at least perform well and keep plays going long with his legs. It doesn't require much if you have a quarterback like that. He doesn't have to be a superstar. He doesn't have to be an MVP of the league. He just needs to get the ball in the end zone when the situation arises. And if the defense can perform well, do better and get turnovers better than they've done this year, then I think that's a formula for success. And I hope the Eagles look forward towards that in the offseason that's upcoming. If Carson Wentz can't be traded, this is the hope for the team. I hope Carson Wentz can at least have some production at some point, because it's just a wasted contract there. Or you get great trade value by sending him to the Colts. But with the contract he has, you're not going to get much back, because the team that's taking him on is taking on a burden. I think hopefully he goes to the Colts. He can revitalize his career with Reich. But right now, he just doesn't have a fit for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts clearly has won this job. And there's not much competition at the quarterback position. But right now, Jalen Hurts has earned his spot as the quarterback. Like we said, we had questions about if he could throw the ball down the field. He upped it between the 2 games, 2 yards extra per attempt. That's what we want to see. He's confident under pressure. It doesn't bother him to be down big. He's able to work his back, play his game, play his style, no matter the score, and he performed well at that. There's a lot of potential there, folks. Like I said, I will eat crow and understand that I was wrong about Jalen Hurts. He is a good quarterback that we need to try and build up and get better as the season go on. And next year we'll find out if he can really be the quarterback for at least the foreseeable future. Question around. But Doug Pearson has to be fired. And that will do it for episode number 63, folks, for the ChadBurn Show. It's been an absolute pleasure, again, running through the playoff implications and where we stand in the NFL, and then also going through a big game for the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. I hope to see more excitement in the next few weeks as we ramp up into the playoffs, as more spots are clinched, as we kind of figure out who is going to play who and how the standings all shake out. Great stuff in the football scene. NBA season is starting soon. Cannot wait to see how that unfolds with the 76ers. We'll have plenty to talk there as well. But for now, focus on the NFL and focus on how our birds continue to do week in and week out. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. We'll be back next week. And until next time, have a good evening and good night. Thank you for listening to the ChadBurn Show. Remember to check out all new episodes every Monday at 7 p.m. on Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all major platforms where you listen to your podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with me and you want to send in your questions or requests for topics to discuss in the show, you can email chadburn.show@gmail.com. All episodes have video recorded, which is then posted to our YouTube channel, The ChadBurn Show. Be sure to subscribe to us where you get your podcasts or on our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all our new content. You can also follow the show on Instagram at ChadBurn Show and on Facebook, The ChadBurn Show, to see clips from previously recorded episodes and information on all upcoming shows.